Early morning in Riverside, a worn-down park on the edge of the city where moss-covered benches lined the paths and pigeons drifted in clusters like wisps of smoke. The sun had yet to fully rise and dew still clung to the grass. The city was still half asleep. From a distance came a rattling sound of an old recycling cart, creaking over loose gravel, its wheels grinding dryly against the stones. Pushing it was a boy, thin, hunched, wearing a frayed hoodie with sleeves too short, his hands tugging and steering just enough to keep it from tipping over. His name was Tyrese Walton, only 12 years old, but his hands were already calloused like a grown man's. Every morning before school, if he had enough money to even get there, he'd push that cart through the grass, collecting empty cans, plastic bottles, anything that could earn a few coins. Not because he wanted money, but because his grandmother, the only family he had left, was battling severe arthritis. Each month, the cost of her medication was a trade-off: electricity, water, or a proper meal. Tyrese didn't complain. He didn't blame anyone. He'd simply grown used to the way people avoided eye contact when they saw him, as if his presence was an inconvenience in the middle of a city that gleamed too brightly to make space for someone like him. A white woman walked past, leash in hand. The moment she met Tyrese's gaze, she tightened the leash and crossed to the other side of the path. Tyrese didn't turn around. He was far too used to being seen as someone who didn't belong in places like this, but he kept walking, kept collecting, kept that little notebook tucked in his pocket, where he logged every item he found so he could go over the totals with his grandmother each night. That boy, on that ordinary morning, had no idea he was about to save the life of a billionaire's wife and make an entire city stop and look at itself. Tyrese was bending down to pick up an empty Sprite can near the fountain when a gust of early wind swept through, blowing his thin cloth cap off his head. He looked up and froze. Not far ahead, near the railing of the small footbridge that crossed the duck pond, a woman stood alone. She looked to be in her 30s, wearing faded jeans, an oversized fabric jacket, and worn-out canvas shoes. Her hair was tied back in a loose bun. Her face was pale and drawn, and beneath her wrinkled shirt, the outline of a large pregnant belly was unmistakable. At first, Tyrese thought she was just resting, but then he noticed her shoulders were trembling, her breathing was short and rapid, and her fingers were gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He looked around. A young woman was live-streaming near a bench. A middle-aged man scrolled through his phone, earbuds plugged in. Two elderly dog walkers glanced at the woman, then turned away. No one stopped. No one asked. And then his grandmother's voice echoed in his mind, tired yet sharp with warning. "We're black. We're poor. If you get involved, people won't believe. You meant well." Tyrese swallowed hard. He was about to walk away when she collapsed. Her hand slipped from the railing. A choked gasp escaped her lips. She clutched her stomach, her face contorted in pain. Her eyes darted wildly, then shut tight. Tyrese ran. No hesitation. He abandoned the cart. Empty cans clattered across the path like alarm bells. He caught her just as her knees buckled. Her body was heavier than he expected, drenched in sweat, burning hot like she was running a fever. He held on tight, his small arms straining to keep them both from falling. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Just sit down. Please, don't pass out." He gently lowered her to the edge of the curb by the railing. One arm braced behind her back. The other reached into his battered backpack. He pulled out a crumpled plastic water bottle, twisted the cap off, and brought it carefully to her lips. "Just a sip. Okay, please, stay awake." The woman parted her lips, took a shallow sip, coughed gently, then began to breathe, shaky but steadier. Sweat streamed down her forehead. Tyrese pulled out an old washcloth, originally one of his grandmother's dish rags, and gently wiped her brow. Her hand trembled as she reached for his, clutching it tightly, like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to life. Suddenly, from behind Tyrese, a voice cut through the air, deep and sharp, laced with suspicion. "Hey, kid, what the hell are you doing to her?" Tyrese frozen. A large man in a park security uniform was approaching. His brow furrowed, one hand already resting on the radio strapped to his chest. And this time, prejudice wasn't just passing by like it usually did. It was coming straight toward kindness with a badge. "Hey, kid," I said, "what are you doing to her?" Tyrese jerked his head around. The security guard loomed over him, face tense, tone accusing. "I'm helping." "She collapsed," Tyrese stammered. The man glanced at the rusted recycling cart. His eyes swept over the boy's ragged hoodie, dirt-streaked sneakers. Then his voice dropped, laced with contempt. "Yeah, I see. Waiting for her to drop her purse. Huh? Look at yourself." Tyrese stepped in front of the woman protectively. She was slumped against the railing now, forehead soaked, clutching her belly, breath shallow and broken. "You're yelling at me, but you haven't asked her a single thing. She's about to give birth. She needs help." The crowd started to take notice. A few people pulled out their phones to record, but no one stepped forward. "Back away," the guard barked. "You want me to call the cops?" Tyrese's heart pounded, but he didn't move. "I'm not scared. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm staying because no one else is." Just then, the woman's hand gripped Tyrese's tighter, and from her lips came a weak, breathless whisper. "This boy saved me." Her words silenced everything. The guard froze. The murmuring crowd fell quiet. Tyrese remained kneeling beside her, hands trembling, but his eyes steadier than ever. And then the screech of tires cut through the air. A black SUV skidded to a stop at the park entrance. The door flew open. A tall man in a gray suit jumped out, panic written all over his face. "Clara, where are you?" Tyrese looked up and recognized the face instantly. Billboards, Downtown Magazine, covers in every tech shop window. It was Riley Westwood, CEO of Verdance Technologies, one of the wealthiest men in the state. The man dropped to his knees beside the woman, gripping her hand, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I just ran to get the car. I didn't expect." "Are you okay?" The woman, now breathing more steadily, looked at her husband and gave a faint nod. Tyrese stepped back motionless. He had just saved the wife of a billionaire, a woman dressed plainly, sitting alone. No security, no name tag. No one had recognized her, and because of that, everyone had walked past her. Riley turned to Tyrese. They looked at each other. One a man of power, the other is an unknown boy. And in that moment there was no class divide, only the truth. Riley remained kneeling beside his wife. One hand clutched hers, still cold. The other gently supported her back. His eyes scanned the area, searching for a doctor, an ambulance, someone doing their job. There was no one. Only a security guard, standing stiffly nearby, eyes still skeptical, hand gripping his radio, like it was the last thing keeping him upright. Riley turned fully toward him, locking eyes. "You were the first to arrive on the scene." "Yes, I saw the kid was touching your wife. I just—" "Did you kneel down?" Riley cut in his voice, low but sharp as a blade. "Did you ask her a single question? Did you see that she was in pain?" The security guard swallowed hard. He didn't answer. "You didn't see a pregnant woman collapsing, but you saw a poor black kid, and immediately thought, 'Criminal.'" The air grew heavy. People around them began to whisper. A few phones were lowered. Shame began to settle, like dust. Riley stood up. He didn't yell. He simply walked over to Tyrese, still kneeling beside his wife, sweat dripping down his face, but his hand never once leaving her shoulder. "What's your name, son?" Riley asked, gently. "Tyrese," the boy murmured, barely looking up. "Thank you, Tyrese. You did the right thing when every adult here chose to stand still." The security guard dropped his gaze. No one said a word, and then the sound of an ambulance siren cut through the morning air. The piercing wail broke the silence. Clara was lifted onto the stretcher. Riley held her hand tightly. Just before the ambulance doors closed, Clara looked around, then pointed to the boy standing quietly beneath the trees. "He stayed with me." That evening, Mrs. Altha turned on the TV. The evening news showed a grainy phone video, Tyrese kneeling beside the woman who had collapsed. A 12-year-old boy saves the wife of C.O. Riley Westwood. She took Tyrese's hand in hers. "You didn't just save someone, baby. You made an entire city stop and look again." The next day, a well-dressed man knocked on their door. "Mr. Westwood would like to see you. Not to repay a debt, but to extend an invitation. Verdant's headquarters." Tyrese walked in, clutching a scholarship folder in his hands. Riley smiled, his voice steady and low. "No one asked you to do the right thing, but you did. And that's why you're here today." Beside him, Ms. Altha was in tears, and for the first time, Tyrese saw a door that didn't slam shut in his face. 1 year later, the Verdant's Community Innovation Center had just opened. The hall was packed. On stage stood a student-designed water filtration model, simple, efficient, made from recycled materials. Tyrese stood beside it, his white shirt, freshly pressed tie, slightly loose. His hands trembled just a little, but his eyes were bright. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. "And now presenting on behalf of the Verdant's Young Innovators Program, our youngest member, Tyrese Walton." He stepped forward, not in a rush, not with his head down. He lifted his chin for the first time, not to see who was watching him, but to allow himself to be seen. "Back then, every morning I pushed a cart through this park collecting cans. I used to think no one noticed me. No one cared. But then, one day, someone needed help. And I stayed. The entire room fell silent. I didn't help her because I knew who she was. I just thought, if no one else would stop, then I had to. And maybe change doesn't come from the strongest person, but from the one who dares to do what's right, when no one else will." His gaze swept across the front row. Riley smiled. Clara held their baby girl. Ms. Altha sat upright, a bouquet in her hands, eyes glistening with pride. From the seats below the stage, applause began, softly scattered, then rising, building like a wave. After the speech, The crowd flowed into the main exhibition hall. Ms. Altha stood surrounded by neighbors, proudly pointing to the newly mounted plaque on the glass wall. At the end of the hallway, Tyrese Walton Youth Research Lab, for those who were once overlooked and chose to stay anyway, Tyrese stood still for a long moment in front of the inscription. He didn't say anything, just looked, as if trying to understand why his name was really there. He remembered the cold pavement beneath his knees, the wary stare of the security guard. That question that used to loop in his head, "Do I even deserve to be here?" And then he smiled. For the first time in his life, the answer was, yes. Riley walked up beside him, holding 2 cups of fruit punch. "Here, drink up. I still can't believe the kid from a year ago is the same one who just stood on that stage." Tyrese chuckled. "Neither can I. But one thing's for sure," Riley said, eyes fixed on the plaque. "You didn't change because someone reached out a hand. You changed because you didn't walk away." Behind them, sunlight streamed through the towering glass panels. The room lit up, and in that moment, Tyrese understood. He wasn't picking up cans anymore. He was picking up a piece of faith the world had once thrown away. Final message. In a world that's always rushing, sometimes the one who dares to stop is the very one who makes the whole world pause and think.